The photograph that shattered the internet's collective heart was never meant for the public eye. It was a grainy, unfiltered snapshot taken by a stunned volunteer during a quiet adoption event at the Grace Avenue orphanage last summer. The image captures a frail 10-year-old girl named Lily clutching a 12-year-old dog named Barnaby, a creature whose balding coat and weary posture had made him invisible to potential owners for over 5 years. While every other child was drawn to the chaotic energy of the puppy pens, this single frame holds a connection that defies logic. Looking closely at their eyes, you see the same haunting depth, the look of two souls who have spent every waking moment of their lives waiting for a home that never seemed to come. Everyone in the room that day remembers the sudden heavy silence that fell as Lily bypassed the beauty and the youth to find the one who was just as broken as she was. This is the evidence of a miracle that proved worth is not determined by time, but by the recognition of one's own heart in another. Lily's world was a series of echoes in the long, sterile hallways of the Grace Avenue orphanage. At 10 years old, she had already mastered the art of being small, of making herself invisible so that the sting of not being chosen wouldn't hurt quite as much. While other children practiced their smiles and straightened their clothes when potential parents visited, Lily would often retreat to the library or stare out of a window at the rain. Her loneliness wasn't a sudden pang. It was a quiet, daily habit, like breathing. She carried a secret, heavy belief that there was something fundamentally unlovable about her, a silent flaw that everyone else could see but she couldn't name. To Lily, home was just a word in the books she read, a place meant for other people, but never for a girl who felt like a ghost in her own life. 30 miles away, in a cramped corner of the municipal animal shelter, Barnaby lived a parallel existence. At 12 years old, he was an ancient relic in a world that prized puppies and playfulness. Barnaby had been at the shelter for 5 long years, nearly 2,000 days of watching people walk past his kennel without stopping. Time had not been kind to him. His once golden coat was now patchy and thin, and a persistent limp made him appear even more fragile. The volunteers called him the invisible dog because he had stopped barking for attention years ago. He had learned that silence was the only dignity he had left. Barnaby's pain wasn't just in his joints. It was the profound exhaustion of a soul that had waited so long for a touch that he had forgotten what a human hand felt like. He was a failure by the shelter's standards. Too old, too ugly, and far too tired to compete with the bright-eyed puppies in the front row. Both Lily and Barnaby were living in the margins, discarded by a world that values youth and perfection over the wisdom of scars. Lily's teachers saw a girl who wouldn't speak, and the shelter visitors saw a dog that wouldn't move. No one saw the fierce, untapped loyalty burning behind Barnaby's clouded eyes, and no one heard the desperate cry for belonging buried deep in Lily's silence. They were two broken puzzles with missing pieces, each waiting for a miracle they no longer believed in, unaware that the very thing the world had rejected in them was exactly what would make them whole in the eyes of the other. The atmosphere inside the community hall was a whirlwind of high-pitched barks and the excited laughter of families. Most children were crowded around the front pens, where golden retriever puppies tumbled over each other and beagle licked every hand that reached through the wire. But Lily stood on the edge of the noise, her small hands tucked into the sleeves of her oversized sweater, her eyes scanning the room not for the loudest voice, but for the quietest shadow. To the staff, she looked like just another shy child, but Lily was listening to a frequency that no one else could hear, the sound of a heart that had given up on being found. Slowly, deliberately, Lily began to walk. She bypassed the wagging tails and the bright eyes of the younger dogs, her footsteps light against the linoleum. She moved toward the back of the hall, past the available for adoption signs, into a dim corner where the fluorescent lights flickered and died. There, in a rusted kennel that felt more like a tomb than a home, sat Barnaby. He didn't stand up when she approached. He didn't wag his tail. He simply rested his gray muzzle on his paws, his clouded eyes staring at a spot on the floor as if he had already accepted his fate as part of the shadows. As Lily drew near, the volunteer leading the tour tried to intervene. "Honey, that's Barnaby. He's..." Well, he's very old and a bit grumpy. Why don't we go back to the puppies? But Lily didn't hear them. She stopped just inches from the bars, the world around her fading into a blur of meaningless noise. In that absolute stillness, a language without words passed between them. It was as if they had known each other from a previous life, two travelers who had finally recognized a familiar rhythm in the dark. Lily sank to her knees, her small frame level with the old dog's tired face. She didn't reach out immediately. She waited, giving him the respect of her presence. Barnaby's nostrils twitched, catching the scent of a loneliness that matched his own. Slowly, painfully, the old dog lifted his head. His gaze locked onto Lily's, and for the first time in 5 years, the invisible dog was seen. His tail gave a single, weak thump against the concrete, a heartbeat echoing through the silence. Lily's breath hitched, and a single, hot tear traced a path through the dust on her cheek. She reached through the bars, her fingers trembling as they touched Barnaby's balding, scarred head. He didn't flinch. Instead, he leaned his heavy weight against her hand, letting out a long, shuddering sigh that seemed to release 5 years of gathered sorrow. "Don't be afraid," Lily whispered, her voice cracking with a vulnerability that broke the hearts of everyone watching from a distance. "I'm just like you. We're going home together." In that moment, the darkness of the kennel didn't feel like a prison anymore. It felt like a shared sanctuary. Lily pressed her forehead against the cool bars, and Barnaby pressed back, their hearts finding each other in the absolute stillness of a soul finally coming home. The girl who felt unlovable had found a creature who saw her as his entire world, and the dog who was too old had found the one person willing to count his remaining heartbeats as treasures. The room remained frozen for what felt like an eternity before the silence was broken by the collective indrawn breath of the volunteers. Tears flowed freely among the staff who had once dubbed Barnaby the invisible dog as they watched the girl who never spoke finally find her voice to claim him. Within hours, the grainy photo of their first embrace was uploaded to social media, accompanied by the simple caption, "Worth is not defined by years." The image ignited a wildfire of compassion across the globe, garnering millions of views and thousands of shares from people who saw their own struggles reflected in Lily and Barnaby's shared victory. But the true miracle happened away from the glowing screens. 3 months later, Lily is no longer the ghost-like girl who hid in the shadows of the orphanage. She has started to bloom, her laughter now a frequent melody in the warm sunlit house they now call home. Barnaby, despite his stiff joints, has found a surprising second puppyhood. He waits by the door every afternoon for Lily to return, his tail thumping a steady, joyful rhythm that fills the once empty rooms. They have built a private sanctuary where gray muzzles are kissed and quiet whispers are always understood. The world saw a broken dog and a silent girl, but they only see a family that was finally completed. Their story stands as a testament to the fact that when we stop looking with our eyes and start seeing with our hearts, a house becomes a home and a discarded life becomes a treasure. The story of Lily and Barnaby is far more than just a successful adoption tale. It is a profound mirror held up to the deepest, often neglected corners of our human hearts. It serves as a hauntingly beautiful reminder that the most life-altering connections often occur in the quietest, most overlooked spaces of our world, far away from the spotlight of perfection and the noise of the superficial. We spend so much of our limited time on this earth chasing the new, the shiny, and the flawless, conditioned by a society that discards what is weathered and forgets what is old. We often find ourselves unaware that the greatest treasures are not those that shine the brightest, but those that have been softened by time and carries the noble scars of loss and survival. The true value of a living soul does not lie in the number of days they have left on their calendar, nor in the physical beauty they present to the world. Instead, it is found in the sheer depth of the love they are willing to pour out in the singular, miraculous moment they are finally seen and found. Barnaby may have been at the end of his journey, but for Lily, he was the beginning of her healing. This tells us that true companionship is never about finding someone who is whole or without blemish. It is about the quiet, sacred art of finding the one whose broken pieces fit perfectly and uniquely into your own. It is in the recognition of our own vulnerabilities in another that we finally find the strength to be ourselves. Sometimes we do not go looking for love with a map and a plan. Instead, love finds us exactly when we have exhausted our hope and given up on the possibility of belonging. It finds us in the shadows of a kennel or the silence of a lonely room. We want to thank you for walking with us through this intimate journey of compassion and for choosing to believe in the undeniable power of a second chance. May you carry the spirit of Lily and Barnaby with you, always finding the light hidden within the shadows and the warmth of a home in the steady beat of a loyal heart. Remember that no soul is ever truly invisible when looked at with the eyes of the heart, for love is the only lens that reveals our true worth.